In this video, we'll look at the basics of the simple past. I'll start with positives and negatives, then questions, and we'll also take a look at the most important signal words for simple past. And to finish with, you'll have some exercises that you can do to practice what you've learned in the video. So with that, let's get started with the basics. So the first thing you'll need for sentences in the simple past are these two letters, E and D. Really important, and I'll show you some examples. So let's take the German verb spielen. If I talk about yesterday, gestern, I could say ich habe gespielt. And in English, spielen is play. And all you need for the simple past is the ed. And then you have yesterday I played. You can do that with some other verbs. Arbeiten, ich habe gearbeitet. Arbeiten is work. And the simple past is I worked. Yesterday I worked. Noch ein Verb, leben. Zum Beispiel, früher habe ich in Australien gelebt. Then we have the verb live. And again, the simple part is ed. Because there's an e, we'll just cover that up. And then it's lived. So I lived in Australia. It's finished. But not all verbs are with ed. There are also irregular verbs. Here are some German examples of the English irregular verbs. So gegangen, gegessen oder gesehen. Ich habe gesehen, ich habe gegessen, ich bin gegangen. You have to be careful with these in English. For example, I go, this is gehen. Yesterday, I went. So that is the simple past. Not I goed. Okay? With go, you need the special one, I went. The same is with essen, with eat. I cannot say I eated a pizza yesterday. I have to say I ate. It's very important to learn the irregular verbs. The third example was sehen. And now you know that it's not yesterday I seed, but you need the irregular form, yesterday I saw. Now, if you are using our 5-column grammar system, you are in the middle column, right? The Spalte in the Mitte, the middle column. You can maybe see here we've got ate and went and wrote, for example. This comes from eat and go and write. So in the middle with the 5-column system, this is the simple past. If you don't have a copy of this, then you can download it by clicking on the link in the description. Another really important irregular verb is coming from sein. Zum Beispiel, ich bin aus Australien. I am from Australia. And if I talk about the simple past, like with yesterday, ich war, then, of course, I am, ich bin. Yesterday, I was. This is also for he, she, it. And the other word is were. We were, they were, you were. Very important, the sound of the word. It sounds like word, right? But if you forget that, then just think about something like this to get the correct sound. It's not where. That's what a lot of people say. You have to say were. We were. I was. She was. It was. But we were. Okay? So for some quick practice, also eine schnelle Übung, for some quick practice. She, music last week. Spielen, oder sie hat gespielt. She played music last week. Simple past. In this example, I, to school yesterday. Gehen, oder bin gegangen. I went to school yesterday. And the last example, we, at home last night. Wir waren zu Hause. We were at home last night. always remembering the sound is were, not where. We were at home last night. So here are 3 classic mistakes that we hear in class quite often. The top one, I have seen you yesterday. It sounds good from German. Ich habe dich gestern gesehen, habe gesehen. But this is called present perfect, and you don't use this when you talk about yesterday, okay? We have these key words, these signal words coming later in the video. What we need, of course, is I saw you yesterday. Now the second one, she saw you yesterday. He, she, it, das es muss mit, in the Gegenwart, perfect, but not in the simple past. Okay, there's no s in the simple past. She saw you yesterday. I saw you, she saw you, we saw you. All right. Now this last example, this is called past progressive with the ing. This is not correct for this example. Okay. This is a different tense that you need for a specific kind of story. Now, what we simply need is, we saw you yesterday. That's it. Apropos Signalwörter, also speaking of signal words, here are some classics for the simple past. So in 2020, auf Deutsch, in 2020, right? This year is 2022, so this is finished. If you have questions with when, then normally you'll use the simple past, if we're talking about the past, of course. Another classic signal word is ago. In German, this is vor, okay? Oh, if you're not sure, when is wann, okay? We normally say, when did you? We'll talk about that in the questions later. Yesterday is a classic signal word. In German, this is gestern, right? And one more is last week, which would be letzte Woche. And maybe you get the feeling that everything is finished. So last week is finished, right? Yesterday is finished. Ago, also vor 2 Wochen, vor 10 Minuten, that's also finished. When did you go? We normally use this with finished times, like this one in 2020. This is also finished. That's the focus of the simple past. Now it's time for negatives. How do you make a negative in the simple past? So, she played music last week is wrong, technically. The positive would be she played, but this is important, right? This is ganz wichtig. In the negative, there's no ed, there's no past here, keine Vergangenheit. The Vergangenheit, the past, comes here with didn't. Did is Vergangenheit from do, also machen oder tun. But here es bedeutet einfach did not. Ich glaube, ich habe es auch geschrieben. Ja, da. Did not is didn't. Okay. And this is the signal for the negative in the simple past. So she didn't play music last week. The positive, she played music last week, but do not do this. This is wrong, okay? She didn't play music last week. And I can use the didn't with verbs like this, right? So I didn't play, I didn't see, I didn't go, okay? Bin nicht gegangen, habe nicht gesehen, habe nicht gespielt. Vielleicht denkst du gerade, aber was ist mit was und were? Zum Beispiel sie war oder wir waren. Is it okay to say I didn't was or we didn't were? No, this doesn't work with these two. Es funktioniert nicht. Was man braucht is weren't. This is were not, zusammengeschrieben. And wasn't, was not. Wasn't, weren't. Maybe, again, ich bin sehr, sehr streng mit diesem Ding, aber weren't Aussprache, nicht weren't, weren't. Okay? Now I'll show you an example in a sentence. I was at home last night, positive. But negative, I wasn't at home last night. And another example, she was at home last night. The negative, she wasn't at home last night. Sie war nicht zu Hause. Also ein paar klassische Fehler. Hier ist eine. She didn't play the music last week. Here we have didn't, which is good for the Verneinung, for the negative. But the played is the problem. Okay? So it's simply, she didn't play music last week. Another classic mistake, she didn't seize the fireworks last week. She, mit S, she sees the fireworks jedes Jahr. This is good. She sees the fireworks every year. This is Gegenwart, simple present. The simple past, Verneinung. She didn't, and then maybe it's easy if we simply cover the S. Then it sounds perfect. She didn't see the fireworks last week. So remember, at the beginning, simple past is about ed, or irregular verbs like went and saw. And in questions, what you need very, very often is the word did. So let's take a look at some examples. Wenn du sagst zum Beispiel, bin ich gegangen oder bist du gegangen oder ist sie gegangen in der Vergangenheit, then you need the first form of the verb. It's very important in the question, okay? And the did comes at the start. So did I go, did you go, and did she go? It's very important. You can see that here on the 5-column system at the bottom with the word did in the questions, okay? This gives you the beginning of the question. Sometimes you have question words at the bottom to start with, but let's say that's very, very important in a question for the simple past. Here's an example with did not at the beginning, but in the second position. So we have a question word, wann, also when. When did you go to the cinema yesterday? Right? Wann bist du gegangen? When did you go to the cinema yesterday? Not when went you, like taking the go and making went. We need this word in the questions very, very, very often. So in this example, we have, for example, warst du gestern zu Hause? Warst du gestern Abend? Warst du letzte Nacht zu Hause? Entschuldigung. Now it's not, for example, did you were, for example, at home last night? You don't use the did when you've got was and were. All you need, für mich ist es ähnlich wie Deutsch. Also, warst du gestern Abend zu Hause? Warst du letzte Nacht zu Hause? Were you at home last night? It's very important. And maybe, again, I've got the sound. It's were, not where. Okay? Were you at home last night? Not did you were. That's a mistake I hear sometimes. And if we talk about she, remember I said he, she, it, das es muss mit, nicht in the simple past, in the Vergangenheit. Here there is an s, technically, okay? Was she at home last night? Not were she at home. This is wrong. We were, you were, they were, for example. I was, she was, it was. So in the question, was she at home last night? Not did she was, okay? So here are a couple of classic mistakes. Again, did you went? This is wrong because with did, we need the present tense, the base form of the verb. So this one, no. Do you went? You think this is good, it's the Vergangenheit, but in the question, this stays in the present tense. So the correct form is not do you went, but did you go? Okay? I know we've talked about it already, but it's very important for that basic structure. Did with the base form or the first form of the verb. So that was it for the theory. Das war's für die Theorie. Now it's time for some exercises. If you want a copy of the 5-column system that I used in the explanation, then you can find a link for that in the description box. And with the exercises, die Übungen, you can also press pause if you need some time to think. Also auf Pause drücken. And yeah, good luck with those. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. It really helps us to find out what is difficult for you and what videos we need to make next. Okay, thanks a lot for watching and good luck.